The next time you peel and core a basket of apples for a pie or for sauce, stop before you throw those peels and cores to the pigs or the compost, because in that bowl of scraps, the parts you were about to throw away, is everything you need to make a jug of good vinegar. The same vinegar you have watched me use in nearly every video I make, for cleaning, for the rinse, for pickling, for a dozen things around this farm. Free vinegar made from garbage with nothing added but water and a little sugar and thyme. It sounds too simple, and the company that sells you that jug of vinegar would rather you not know it, but it is one of the oldest and easiest things a kitchen can make, and I am going to show you the whole of it today. Here is the truth about vinegar, stripped of all the mystery. Vinegar is nothing more than the end of a two-step natural process that happens to sweet liquids left alone. First, the sugars in a sweet liquid ferment into alcohol. That is how cider becomes hard cider, how grape juice becomes wine. Then, if that alcohol is left open to the air, a second set of natural bacteria floating all around us turn the alcohol into acid. And that acid is vinegar. Sweet to alcohol to vinegar, two steps, both of which happen all on their own if you simply give nature the chance. The word itself comes from the Old French for sour wine, because that is all vinegar truly is, a sweet liquid that has gone all the way sour. Mankind did not invent vinegar. We discovered it by leaving cider and wine out too long, and then we learned to do it on purpose. And the sugars left in apple scraps, the peels and cores you throw away, hold just enough sweetness to make the whole thing happen. My name is Amos Miller. I am Amish, and I farm here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. We have apple trees, and in the fall, we put up a great deal of applesauce and apple butter and dried apples, and that means bowls and bowls of peels and cores. Once upon a time, those went to the hogs. Now a good share of them go into a crock to become vinegar, and we have not bought a jug of vinegar in I cannot tell you how long, for cleaning or for anything else. I am going to show you the whole of it today, from a bowl of scraps to a jug of good vinegar, for nothing. I am going to walk you through making the vinegar step by step, slow and plain. And I am going to be honest with you about what this vinegar is good for and the one important thing it is not reliable for, because there is a real safety matter there that I will be very clear about. There is also one thing, one sign that tells you the vinegar is working as it should, and one other sign that tells you a batch has gone wrong and must be thrown out. And I am going to teach you both so you never go astray. Stay for that part especially. Here is what you need, and it costs you nothing you are not already throwing away. The first thing is apple scraps, the peels and cores from apples, the parts you would discard, or even whole apples that are bruised or windfall and not good for much else, chopped up. You want enough to about half fill your jar. The second thing is water, plain water. And if your tap water is heavily chlorinated, let it sit out a day first, or use rain or well water, because heavy chlorine can trouble the ferment. The third thing is a little sugar, a tablespoon or so per quart of water, which feeds the first fermentation and gets it going strong. And the last things are a vessel, a wide-mouthed glass jar or a crock, never metal, and a bit of breathable cloth, and a rubber band or string to cover the top. Apple scraps, water, a spoon of sugar, a glass jar, and a cloth. That is the whole of it, and it is free. Now here is the trick, the thing that makes this work and that folks get wrong, so listen close. This process needs two different things at two different times, and they seem opposite. The first fermentation, sugar into alcohol, wants to be away from too much air down under the liquid. So in the first stage, you keep all the apple scraps pushed down under the water. But the second fermentation, the one that actually makes the vinegar alcohol into acid, needs air, needs to breathe, which is why you cover the jar with cloth and not a sealed lid, so the air can get in, but the flies and dust cannot. So the secret is keep the scraps submerged under the water in the first weeks and let the whole thing breathe through a cloth the entire time. Folks who seal the jar tight get a fizzy mess and no vinegar because the second step cannot happen without air. Submerged scraps, breathing cloth, that is the trick. So here is how you make it. You fill your clean glass jar about halfway with your apple scraps. You stir your spoon of sugar into some water until it dissolves and pour that sweet water over the scraps until they are covered and the jar is most of the way full, leaving room at the top. Now, the scraps will want to float. And remember, they must stay under the water in these first weeks, or the floating bits will mold in the air. So you weight them down with a smaller jar or a clean dish, or you simply stir it well twice a day to keep pushing the floating bits back under. You cover the mouth of the jar with your cloth, fastened with a band so nothing can crawl in, and you set it in a warm, dim spot out of direct sun at room temperature. For the first week or two, this is the alcohol stage. You will see bubbles and smell a yeasty, cidery, slightly boozy smell. That is the sugar turning to alcohol, and it is exactly right. Stir it daily, keep the scraps under. After a week or two of this, you strain out the apple scraps. They have given all they have, and you pour the liquid back into the clean jar, cover it again with the cloth, and now you simply wait for the second stage, the long one. Now the alcohol slowly turns to acid, to vinegar, and this takes several weeks more, often a month or two, sitting there breathing through its cloth. The boozy smell fades and is replaced little by little by the sharp, clean, sour smell of vinegar. You taste it now and again with a clean spoon, and when it is as sour and sharp as you like, it is done. You strain it once more, bottle it, and there is your vinegar. Now here is the sign that it is working. The thing that surprises and sometimes frightens folks new to this. Somewhere along the way, a cloudy, gelatinous, pale disk may form on top of the liquid, or strands and cobwebby bits may drift through it. Do not throw it out. That is the mother, as the old folks call it, of film of the very good bacteria that make the vinegar, and it is a sign of a fine, healthy batch, not a spoiled one. You can lift the mother out and use it to start your next batch faster, or just leave it and strain it out at the end. A cloudy mother is good, but here is the sign of trouble, the one that means throw it away. Fuzzy mold, standing up in tufts, especially black, pink, blue, or green fuzz growing on the surface, that is bad. And a batch with fuzzy colored mold should be thrown out and started over. And trust your nose. A good batch smells boozy, then sharply sour clean. But a batch that smells rotten or putrid, foul rather than sour, has gone wrong and goes in the compost. Cloudy mother and a sour smell, good. Fuzzy colored mold or a rotten smell, throw it out. Now, I must be honest about the one important limit because this is a safety matter and I am always plain with you. This homemade vinegar is wonderful for cleaning, for the dish rinse, for salad dressings, for cooking, for 100 uses around the house. But there is one thing you must not rely on it for, and that is canning and preserving. Water bath canning of pickles and the like, where the recipe calls for vinegar of a known exact acidity, usually 5%. The reason is that safe canning depends on the acid being strong enough to stop the dangerous bacteria, and you have no way to know the exact strength of your homemade vinegar. which can vary from weak to strong batch to batch. Too weak, and a canned product could grow something that makes your family gravely ill. So, for canning and preserving for shelf storage, you use store vinegar with its acidity printed on the label every time, no exceptions. Your homemade vinegar is for cleaning, cooking, dressings, and using fresh, not for the kind of canning where a known acid level keeps people safe. Honest is always better than careless, and that is a line I will not blur. Let me give you the troubleshooting. If after weeks it is still boozy and not turning sour, it needs more air or more time or more warmth. Make sure it is breathing through cloth, not sealed, and give it a warmer spot. If you got fuzzy mold, scraps floated up into the air in the first weeks, keep them submerged or stir more faithfully next time. If it is too weak and not very sour, it may not have had enough sugar in the apples or enough time. Let it go longer and use sweeter or more scraps next time. And remember to keep it out of direct sun and away from metal. Most every trouble comes back to air, time, or the scraps floating up. Let me tell you more about the mother, for she is the heart of vinegar making. And once you have her, you never start from nothing again. The mother is a living mat of the good bacteria that turn alcohol to acid, and as a batch works, she forms as a cloudy, rubbery, pale disc on the surface, sometimes thin as a skin, sometimes thick as a pancake. Far from being something to fear, she is the engine of the whole thing, and a healthy mother is the sign of a thriving batch. And here is her great gift. When you finish a batch, you lift the mother out and drop her into your next jar, and she gets that batch making vinegar far faster than starting fresh, for the work is already half begun. So once you have made vinegar once and grown a mother, you keep her going batch after batch, year after year, the same living culture serving your family indefinitely, passed along even to neighbors and children starting their own, a spoonful of finished raw vinegar, the cloudy, unfiltered kind, will also seed a new batch, carrying a bit of the mother with it. This is why the old vinegar crock on the back of the counter never went empty. The mother lived on, and the family fed her scraps and sweet water, and she gave back vinegar forever. Let me give you the variations, for apple scraps are only the beginning. The same two-step process, sweet to alcohol to acid, works with any sweet liquid. You can make vinegar from whole bruised or windfall apples chopped when you have them, for a stronger result than scraps alone. You can make it from other fruit scraps and peels, pears, grapes, berries, each giving its own vinegar. You can make a vinegar from leftover wine simply by leaving it open to the air with a bit of mother, for wine is already alcohol and only needs the second step. You can make it from cider directly. And the old folks made vinegars from honey, from maple sap, from all manner of sweet things that would otherwise go to waste. The principle never changes. A sweet liquid, given time and air, and the mother becomes vinegar. Master the apple scraps, and you have mastered them all, and there is hardly a sweet left over in your kitchen that you cannot turn into good vinegar instead of pouring it out. Let me give you the uses, for the reason this is worth doing is how much vinegar a thrifty household goes through. Around the house, vinegar cleans glass and counters and floors, cuts grease, descales the kettle, freshens the wash, rinses the dishes clear, and deodorizes near anything. It does the work of half the bottles in the cleaning aisle, as I have shown you in video after video. In the kitchen, it dresses salads, brightens a sauce, tenderizes, and flavors a dozen dishes. It eases an itchy bite, makes a hair rinse, and soothes a great many small troubles. A family that makes its own vinegar for free from its apple peels has, in one jar, the answer to a long shelf of store-bought products. That is why the old vinegar crock earned its keep. It was not one product, but the root of many, made from garbage, renewing itself forever. Now, let me be very plain once more about the one limit, because it is a true safety matter and I will not soften it. Your homemade vinegar is splendid for cleaning, for cooking, for dressings, for any fresh use. But you must not use it for canning or for any preserving meant to sit shelf-stable for months, the water bath canning of pickles and the like. The reason is simple and serious. Safe canning depends on the vinegar being acid enough, strong enough, to stop the dangerous bacteria that can grow in a sealed jar and cause the deadly sickness called botulism, which you cannot see, smell, or taste. Canning recipes call for vinegar of a known 5% acidity for exactly this reason. And your homemade vinegar's strength varies from batch to batch, and you have no sure way to measure it. It might be plenty strong, or it might be too weak, and you cannot tell by tasting. So for any canning or shelf-stable preserving, you use store vinegar with the acidity printed right on the label, every single time. No exceptions, no shortcuts. Use your homemade vinegar fresh and for cleaning and cooking. Use measured store vinegar for canning. That line is about your family's life, and I will not blur it for any amount of thrift. Let me tell you a little of where vinegar came from, for it humbles the store bottle. Vinegar is among the most ancient things mankind makes, older than written history. It was surely discovered by accident when wine or cider was left too long and went sour, and the old peoples found that the sour stuff kept food, cleaned wounds, quenched a worker's thirst mixed with water, and flavored the pot. The laborers who built the ancient wonders drank watered vinegar. It preserved food through ages with no refrigeration. For thousands of years, every household that made any sweet drink also made vinegar, as a matter of course, from the leavings. It was simply part of keeping a kitchen free and constant. That a thing so ancient and so simple and so free is now bottled and sold to us, while the knowing of how to make it from our own scraps is forgotten, tells you everything about what we have traded away. And let me leave you with one more practical thought, for it is the thing that makes vinegar making a true habit rather than a one-time experiment. Keep a jar always going. The moment you strain off a finished batch, start another with fresh scraps, dropping the mother back in to speed it along. Keep it on the back of the counter or in a dim corner of the pantry where you will see it and tend it, feeding it the peels and cores that would otherwise be thrown out. In this way, you always have vinegar coming, always have a mother to share, and never buy a jug again for cleaning or cooking. It becomes as ordinary as keeping a sourdough or a bread going, a small, living thing in the kitchen that gives back steadily for almost no trouble. That is how it was in every old kitchen, and how it can be in yours. Now, I want to take a moment, because this is the part that matters. Think about who profits from that jug of vinegar on the store shelf. Vinegar is one of the oldest, simplest, cheapest substances there is. Sour cider, nothing more. And yet it is bottled and shipped and sold to you, and the cleaning vinegars and the special vinegars are marked up higher still. The whole cleaning aisle, in truth, is built on selling you bottle after bottle of things that vinegar does most of the work of, while the means to make your own from the scraps in your peeling bowl for free was simply never mentioned. There is no profit in teaching a family to turn its apple peels into all the vinegar it will ever need. A family that makes its own vinegar buys a little less of nearly everything in that aisle, So the knowing of it slipped away, not because it is hard, it is about the easiest thing a kitchen can do, but because free does not sell. So here's what I want you to do this week. The next time you have apple scraps, peels, cores, a few windfall apples, do not throw them out. Put them in a clean glass jar, half full, cover them with water and a spoon of sugar, weight them under or stir them daily, and cover the jar with a cloth. Set it in a warm, dim corner and let nature do the rest. In a month or two, you will have a jar of good vinegar made from what you would have thrown away, and you will keep a batch going from then on, mother and all. Tell me in the comments below, have you ever made your own vinegar? And how did it turn out? And did your grandparents keep a vinegar crock going on the back of the counter? I read every single one of these, and the old ways you all share are the reason I keep doing this. Next time, I'm going to show you how this farm makes a simple soap from scratch, a plain bar for the body and the wash, for pennies, gentler than anything in a wrapper. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, keep the scraps under and the jar breathing. Trust the mother never can with it. And remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.